It is 7:35, and we will resume our board meeting. On behalf of Wayne-Westland Community Schools, I would like to welcome Dr. Catherine Koss to this interview for the position of superintendent. Dr. Catherine Koss is interim superintendent of Wayne-Westland Community Schools. I will take a few moments to briefly describe our format. The interview may take up to 90 minutes. There will be 21 questions from the board. Toward the end of the interview, time permitting, we will give you the opportunity to ask questions of the board and make a closing statement. We will let you know if time is becoming an issue and there is a need to pick up the pace of the responses. Midway, I will let you know where you are and how many questions are left, okay? Again, for those present for this interview, we welcome and encourage your feedback. Rather than making public comments about our candidates, we ask that you use the QR code provided for this purpose. Although the task of choosing our next superintendent is the responsibility of the Board of Education as the elected representatives of our community, we value and seriously consider the input of our stakeholders in the process. Dr. Koss, I have the first three opening questions. While we have had the opportunity to review your application materials, audience members have not. Please briefly review your background and share what causes you to be interested in this position at this point in your career.
Thank you, President May. I just want to acknowledge your hard work this week. You have not taken this process lightly, and I appreciate being one of the 6. And even though it's a little different to be here speaking to all of you there, I respect the process, and I look forward to this conversation tonight. I believe the question was background? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I grew up in Saline, Michigan. The highlight of my senior year was winning the state volleyball championship. And I say that because that let me go on to U of M and play ball there. So I was a letter winner and also loved math, so I took lots of math classes. I graduated with a math major, chemistry minor, and also got my teaching certificate. From there, I became a high school math teacher. I taught for 9 years. I never dreamed of becoming an administrator. I got my master's in teaching because I loved teaching. And one day, a man by the name of Jim Myers, who coincidentally was the principal at John Glenn and has roots here, I think 21 years, he was my principal in Farmington, and he tapped me on the shoulder and said, we have an opening as an assistant principal. I think you'd be a great candidate. That was furthest from my mind. But as I started thinking about it, as a teacher, I had 125 students, but as an assistant principal, I would be able to interact with 600. And so I did it because I wanted to be an impact in more students' lives. So I became an assistant principal. That led me then to go and get my doctorate, start my doctoral program in leadership because I enjoyed it so much. I then became the principal at Troy Athens High School, and that high school had 2,400 students in it. The community was very similar here. There were 2 high schools, there were 4 middle schools there, 10 elementaries. And what may surprise you is the level of diversity that Troy had. And it was culturally diverse, racially diverse, ethnically diverse. I had my first Chinese tea ceremony when I was in Troy as a principal. But it was also multilingual, socioeconomic. And when I say that, you might think of Troy and think of Somerset Mall. I did home visits to families who had wood planks on their kitchen floor. You could see the dirt underneath. And it was all in an effort to make sure those families felt included and wanted to come to school. My children were born Red Hawks, so I had them when I was a principal, and that will always be a fun memory for me. I was there for 6 years before I went back to Farmington as an assistant superintendent, and I oversaw pre-K-12 curriculum and instruction, and I was there for 8 years. Farmington also is a very diverse community, especially multilingual. They had 3 center programs. That's when I learned about Act 18. And I was there for 8 years. There was a hardship financially. Those were the days where we did not get a per pupil increase. We had to close 6 sites and trim $18 million out of the budget, so it was hard. It was hard, but we worked with the unions, we worked with the community, and got a plan, and for the betterment, made them sustainable. So I was there for 8 years. When my children were going into 5th grade, I became the superintendent in Wyandotte, Michigan. We moved to Wyandotte, and I was the superintendent there for 10 years. And that community is about half the size of Wayne-Westland, but the socioeconomic diversity was even greater than here. We were an entire Title I district, and we're able to utilize those resources pre-K or K through 12. So, let's see, my children graduated from Wyandotte Roosevelt High School. I retired from there in 2023. I then went to work for my husband's company called K-12 Media, which services K-12 schools and communications. A year ago, I got a call from the Hazel Park board president saying they needed some help. Their fund balance had dipped below 5%, and they needed an interim superintendent. So I was happy to help them. I needed to work with their administrative teams as well as the state, because when your fund balance dips below 5%, you need to do a corrective plan of action. So we worked with the state with the goal of having the fund balance be above 5% by the end of the year. And I provided some stability as well as some knowledge to make that happen. Kevin Sutton, whom you all know, contacted me at the end of June and said, I have another opportunity for you. Would you be interested? And the rest has been history. It's hard to believe I've been here for 9 years, and I've enjoyed every minute of it.
9 years?
Oh, 9 months.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Thinking ahead, I like that.
I'm like I had 2 elections I won.
Thank you. Based on your research about our district, what do you believe are the 2 or 3 most critical long-term priorities we must address? And how do your background and skills position you to lead that work?
So curriculum instruction is at the core of my being, especially as an educator. And so I'm going to say student achievement is one of the top ones. And that's also our most important work. I think that's why we are all in this room together, is so we can help students be successful. So student achievement is absolutely the first. Another one I would say, creating a fund balance and a stable budget. A third would be looking at our enrollment trends and being able to increase them. Ms. May, I think the second part of your question is, what is my expertise to help in those areas? Am I right with that?
Yes, how do your background and skills position you to lead that work?
Thank you. So student achievement, when I got to Athens High School, I looked at 9th grade students not being successful, and I can understand why. They were in a school of 2,400 students. They were getting lost. So we developed a school within a school program to help them be successful in 9th grade and then transition them to 10th, 11th, 12th. In Farmington, our elementary math scores were abysmal. So we found a research-based curriculum, we implemented it, and within 3 years started seeing gains. So I'm familiar with being able to come in and look and see the needs and then put something in place to support that. Budget-wise, when I was a superintendent, I worked so closely with our CFO because I am a very conservative budget person, and I want to make sure that we are living within our means while being able to provide the things students need in the classroom and we're negotiating next year. We're gonna start negotiating next year because the contract's gonna end. So we need to be able to put us in a position where we can continue to pay our employees, retain them, and honor the work that they do. Last but not least, enrollment. We've done some analysis, and we know we want to bring Wayne-Westland families back. The question is, how do we do that? We want to bring them back. We want to attract new families. And I have 10 years of positive enrollment increases when I was in Wyandotte.
Thank you. What specific qualities and capabilities do you bring to this position that may set you apart from others?
So first and foremost, my 90-day plan, which I will deliver to you at the end of this evening, starts April 8th. Your decision is April 7th, and if I am selected, my first 90 days starts April 8th. So what does that mean? That means I'm going to hit the ground running. I'm not waiting till July. There's no transition period. I can do the work immediately. So that's one thing. A second thing I would mention is my experience. Having been in this role for 12 years, all in Wayne County, I know people at RISA, I know who to contact, I know people in an organization called the Metro Bureau, I know we belong to another organization that connects like districts, like Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo. So I'm networked because of that experience, and I can bring those resources here. I will also tell you, I'm doing this by choice and by passion. This is not a stepping stone to get to another district. This isn't for my final average compensation. In doing some soul searching over the holiday break, I wanted to make a difference, and that's what drives me. That is solely why I'm here. I could retire again, but I see all the wonderful things happening in Wayne-Westland, and I know I can make a difference with the skill set I have.
Thank you. At this point, I'm going to turn questions over to Secretary Hines.
Good afternoon. Great to see you today. So I usually repeat the questions twice because some of the questions are kind of long a little bit. So maintaining healthy relationships with the school and community stakeholders is important to the Board of Education. Please share with us how you have gone about building and maintaining successful relationships with all members of the school community. Again, maintaining healthy relationships with the school and community stakeholders is important to the Board of Education. Please share with us how you have gone about building and maintaining successful relationships with all members of the school community.
That's a great question. So first and foremost, it would start with all of you. When I was hired in July, one of the first things I did was sit down with each of you and get your input and get your thinking about how to move Wayne-Westland forward or what my role should be. In my 90-day plan, that is there again because we now have different work than we did in January or in June, July. So the relationships would start with all of you and continue with all of you. I believe we have made great inroads as a team of 8, and we need to continue that work in the months ahead. I had a principal when I was a teacher, and when I saw him coming, I started like going down a different hallway. And it took me a while to figure out why that was happening. And the reason is because every time I saw him, he needed something from me. So I took that to heart and never forgot it. So when I approach this work, it's important that employees see me for just everyday circumstances as well as if we have to problem solve. And I believe that that relationship starts with, for example, when I come in the morning, I will go and say good morning to everyone. And I will use their names. Good morning, Lauren. Good morning, Erica. Kim, of course, I know. But it's important to me that they know that I know who they are and I can call them by name. So we just start our day together. Good morning. Now, the rest of the day, do I need help with a crazy bill we just got? Sure. So I'm back over in our business office. Or I'm asking a question about a letter's adoption. So during the course of the day, we do work. Or I'm at Buildings and Ground checking in with Matt and Gino. It's important to me that I go to schools and say hi to the principal and the secretary and then just walk the halls because I want people to see me. I want them to ask me questions. I want to be visible so that in the event that there's something wrong, a medical emergency, accident, an angry parent, and I'm nearby, I can go and do the work with them. So it's important that I go and see principals. I'm in schools every day, and it's in the majority of the time, it's hello, how are you, how's your day going? I talk to the food service employees. I know what days pizza days are. I know what days we serve Bosco sticks, corn dogs. And it's just sending a message that they're important and they care. So I would continue to do that. Relationships are built on trust, integrity, doing what you say you're going to do, and following through. And that's extremely important to me. And I value and just pride myself on being able to work shoulder to shoulder with all the good people in this district.
Thank you. Next question. How do we create a district-wide culture of continuous improvement, planning strategically and aligning with our actions to achieve strategic outcomes? So again, how do we create a district-wide culture of continuous improvement, planning and strategically, and aligning our actions to achieve strategic outcomes?
So when you read that the first time, what I thought about was our strategic plan. And what I am very proud of is how it was developed. This was shared with you at a board workshop, and there were some videos. Like I remember Mr. Cox in the video talking about he looked at data from his school. He brought it then to the district. All the leaders were comparing data to figure out what our greatest needs were. And then the strategic plan goals were created. They were then supported by central office, and then you voted to approve them. So when we talk about a culture of continuous improvement, the fact it was born from the roots up and it wasn't done top down, we know that, for example, transportation plays a role in that because they have to get our children to school. If they're not in school, they can't learn. Food service plays a great part in that with breakfast and lunch. So the fact that our goals are aligned will drive our professional development, will drive our spending, will drive our professional development, will drive our data collection so that we are continually looking at data, continually making sure we are doing our most important work.
Thank you. And the last question is, effective and timely communication is vital to the success of a school district. Please describe the type of communication students, staff, and parents and the board should receive from you. So effective and timely communication is vital to the success of a school district. Please describe the type of communication students, staff, parents, and the board should expect to receive from you.
So this is also addressed in my 90-day plan because we need to establish that communication. The 8 of us, when we sit down and have a workshop or when I'm meeting with you individually, we'll talk about your expectations for how I communicate with you, what I communicate to you, how I respond, timelines. Am I getting you information in a timely fashion? How do I support what you need? That is certainly important. But also, in a broader scale, I would be the face of the district, meaning parents would come to expect knowing when information needs to come out in the event something happens at a school, something happens district-wide. It can be proactive, it can be reactive, but they need to know and have trust in me as the superintendent. And that comes through communication. Right now, we send newsletters, we send monthly communication to the community. There is certainly information shared on social media. There are Class Dojo notifications sent out. But I want to do more than that. Something that you all had mentioned that Jen Curry had done and that was quite successful was go out into the community and meet people in their neighborhoods, their community centers, and connect with them that way. We started a parent advisory, which I attend, and they have given us good food for thought, and that would be another place I would connect with parents. We are about to start our student advisory, and that would be a place to certainly hear what students are saying and getting feedback on their experience. I would continue to be present in schools to learn. One little girl, she was funny. She must have been in 2nd or 3rd grade, and she just said the water fountains were too high. But those are the things that they have and will freely share. I was at a John Glenn, and the food service people were frustrated because the kids were taking their parking spots. Okay, well, that's something I can get my arms around. And then communicate back with them. So I think it happens frequently in many different ways, proactively, reactively, and the result will be people trusting the decisions that we're making, people knowing how to give their feedback, their input, and us being in touch with the community.
Thank you. Now we'll give you to Mr. David Cox.
Dr. Cost, thank you for applying for this position, for being here tonight, and for all you do for the students of our district. Under the subject of political awareness, my question is, what is your experience with threat assessments, and what have you learned from your experiences?
So in, I believe, October of 2026, so this October, right? State of Michigan, a law went into effect that said we have to have building teams as well as an assessment. We have to use a state-required assessment. I think it's called a CSTAG, maybe. And when certain conditions happen, we need to conduct a threat assessment. That can be done by social workers, psychologists, principals, counselors. Our SROs are usually involved. And I think the biggest learning since Oxford is that no one person is making a decision. It's a team, and it's a trained team. Everybody who participates in that building team has to be trained. The person giving the assessment has to be trained in the assessment. I think it's been utilized widely here on many occasions, even if there's a suspicion, because we'd rather err on the side of caution.
Thank you. This next question is, superintendents are often faced with making decisions when there is no clear right answer and the community is divided. Please describe a time when you faced such a decision, including how you approached the decision-making process and how you work to build understanding and support for the direction that you chose.
So I'm gonna highlight a situation that was hard for me. And that had to do with cell phone towers in Wyandotte. And to kind of give you a little background, in 2018, my CFO came to me and said, T-Mobile has proposed putting a cell tower on a chimney at one of our elementary schools. And in return, they will give us $1,200 a month. Okay, that could buy, new playground furniture, books. It sounded interesting. So we sent it off to our attorneys. The attorneys said it was fine, the contract was fine. Per the Open Meetings Act, we discussed it at not one but two meetings. There was no public comment, and it passed 7-0. Then COVID hit. Everything shut down. Then the supply shortage hit. So by 2022, T-Mobile was ready to start construction. In September, the start of school, I sent an email to all the parents of that school saying contractors were not going to be there during the school day. Even so, they were all going to be background checked, and that you would start seeing vans there after school hours. Nothing. Let's see, it was gonna turn on in April. February, 60 community members, which represented 0.005% of Wyandott's community, became very vocal and very opposed to the cell phone tower turning on. We looked at all options. Could we move the tower? But by then it was almost done, and it would have been $1 million, and you can't use taxpayer money to move a cell phone tower if you're a school district. We just couldn't. We had signed a contract with T-Mobile, so we were legally bound to continue the work. I brought in T-Mobile experts. I brought in somebody who was a doctor in radio waves. We had a physician. So we attempted to get information out. For whatever reason, I don't know why, their minds were not open to hearing. Their minds were not open to problem solving. Their minds were not into doing anything constructive other than, to be frank, be very nasty and give misinformation out. Our board meetings were a distraction. I had considered retiring, and what was hard for me was this was the community where I lived, and my children, had gone to school, and to see the division happening was heartbreaking. So I approached my board president and I said, would you like to buy me out of my contract? Thinking that maybe a change would calm the waters and let things move forward. So the board's attorney worked with mine. We developed a separation agreement. They bought me out of the 3 years of my contract that remained. So I walked away with that win. They walked away being able to have a fresh start. The result was all of the lawsuits were thrown out. The tower was turned on. The enrollment is right where it used to be at that school, and the community has been able to move on. But it was heartbreaking. It was. Now, I wish I had a crystal ball at the time and would have said $1,200 a month is not worth all of that. But sometimes you can't see what's coming ahead. But I am glad that community is healed. I'm glad it's moved forward, and I still live there and enjoy eating downtown, getting ice cream at Stroh's. So it seems like things have worked out the best they could.
Thank you. My final question is, please share specific ways that our district should work with other districts to support learning for all students.
Earlier, I mentioned organizations like RISA, I am proud that staff here attend those meetings, those monthly principal meetings, monthly curriculum meetings, monthly HR meetings, monthly CFO meetings. I attend our superintendent meetings. The value of working together is paramount. Here's an example. I was talking to Derek Fisher, who's the superintendent of Garden City, right next door. He had students come to him over the summer and want halal meals. He had an increase in Muslim families, and they were asking if they could be proactive and work with their food service. I got wind that we had some students at John Glenn who had come forward to food service and asked the same thing. So I could put our food service director in touch with their food service director just because of that connection and those conversations. I mentioned the Metro Bureau. Metro Bureau is comprised of districts mostly in Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb County. For example, we sent Dr. Jefferson and Daryl Beebe to an AI conference that they hosted. And so that was sharing of information from other districts who might be a little further or who had similar questions. Wayne-Westland also belongs to an organization called Michigan Alliance for Student Opportunities. And that's like-sized districts with like demographics. I think I mentioned Kalamazoo, Battle Creek. I talked to Kalamazoo, the superintendent in Kalamazoo about chronic absenteeism because I read an article there about the differences they've been able to make and said, what's the secret sauce? What really turned it around for you? So by having other districts who have seen what's worked, that can make us move faster if we share that information.
Thank you, Dr. Cost. I'm now going to hand it over to Dr. Weaver.
Welcome, Dr. Cost. It's been a pleasure working with you these last 9 months. I think you've already answered this question, but I will say it again. What is the most difficult decision you've had to deal with in your career in education, and how did you resolve it?
That probably would have been the cell phones.
Yep. Okay. My next question is, what are the key elements needed to establish and maintain a good working relationship between you, our staff, and the Board of Education?
Can you read the beginning part of that again, Dr.
Sure.
Weaver, please? Was it key elements?
The key elements needed to establish and maintain a good working relationship between you, the board, and the community and staff.
Yeah. So I think President May had talked about relationships, asked a question about relationships. And I think this ties right into that. Trust, first and foremost, and how you earn that trust. Examples would be doing what you say you're going to do, being able to listen. Integrity, I think, is a huge part of those key elements. There are times where I might not like something, but I need to act with integrity. That's got to come first. I think it's important to have an open door policy both ways, so we can listen to each other, so that we can hear what one another is saying. Collaboration, I think, is another huge key element. And in my opinion, that's where this district thrives. When I see staff working together to redirect a child who might be having a hard moment. I was in WIA the other day, and there were 3 staff members, and the principal came down the hall and he said, "How can I help?" And they did it gracefully, and the student had dignity, and they were able to get that student where she needed to be. I also think what's important is that expectations are known. There's clarity. Because if a principal needs something from me and I'm misreading it, I need to have clarity of what I'm missing so that I can provide that support to that principal. So clarity both ways is, I think, important so that you can work through situations.
Okay, thank you. How do you inspire and engage an entire school community in support of the district's vision and mission?
That's a big question. I would use the example of the bond. We passed a $125 million bond in November. It wasn't just me by any stretch of the imagination. We needed all of you to help. You came to events, you promoted it, you had yarn signs, we mentioned it here at board meetings. You were informed so you could talk about it if you met somebody at a place of worship or at Kroger. You had a hand in that as leaders. We had talking points for principals. Teachers were updated as to what it would mean for them, their classrooms, their students. Transportation had presentations. Food service had presentations so they would know. So it takes a village. And my vision, my goal is to have the Wayne-Westland brand so strong within this community that parents have this is where they send their children. And that means they need their confidence in us. It means they need to trust that we're going to take care of their children, that we're going to have opportunities for them where they can just grow and excel. So being able to talk about the brand of Wayne-Westland is how we're going to engage them, how we're going to bring them back, how we're going to keep them here. And it's a multi-layered approach. So just like the bond, where we had so many people talking and reaching out to so many different places, we're going to need that strategy again. So it can be through traditional communication to engage them. It can be face-to-face. It can be meeting them where they are. If it's at a basketball game, if it's on a Saturday and their child is playing soccer, if it is going to their community center and bringing dinner. So I believe we can do it on many levels with the goal of having our brand strong.
Mr. Rashan will be next.
Really quick, before Mr. Rashan begins, there are 9 questions left, and you have about 51 minutes.
I'm in good shape then.
Yep.
Okay.
Good evening, Dr. Koss. I have 3 questions. And my first question is, what experience and success have you had with closing the achievement gap for economically disadvantaged and minority students?
If I may, I also might throw in special ed and ML into that conversation, because I think those are 2 groups here that are very important. 20% of our students have IEPs. And so we need to make sure that we are touching all those subgroups. But that is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I think I had mentioned when I was at Athens, the 9th grade academy. At Farmington, our K-5 math scores were rough. So we went out, looked at research-based curriculum, what was proven. It didn't just look glossy and have nice, supplemental materials, but it really addressed the gap issue. We introduced that program over 2 years so teachers could learn. It's hard to adopt a new curriculum, especially as an elementary principal, because you've got ELA, science, math, social studies, and so to do a whole new adoption is difficult. So we spread it over 2 years. We made sure the professional development was all aligned to that. so it could be adopted with fidelity and taught the way it was meant to be taught. We hired some math coaches to work alongside the teachers. As they were learning, the coaches could help them. So what did that do? Because it was adopted with fidelity, it meant that teachers would teach, they would assess, they would see where gaps were in learning based on the assessments. They would form small groups to address those gaps, or if a student got it, that student could do advanced work. They might combine classes. If you and I are third grade teachers, I might take, 5 of your kids and 5 of mine, and you'd take the others. So they were able to put best practice in place to help all students, no matter where they started, and the goal was get them to where they need to be. So what we saw, the implementation was 2 years. 3 years later, we saw those gaps far diminished, and it was not only with growth, but also proficiency.
Next question. Reading at grade level by third grade is a critical milestone for future academic success. What strategies will you support to ensure all students achieve grade level literacy by the end of third grade?
So that's a fun question for me. Channel 4 sent a news reporter here 2 weeks ago to talk about this literacy, our literacy journey. Now, it wasn't for a great reason. It was, we were picked because our literacy rates are low. And so they were wondering, what are you doing about it? But the beauty of the story was what this staff has done prior to me coming here. And I'm excited to tell you that. 5 years ago, there were some staff members who went to letters training. Letters training is an extensive, it's 3 years long. It's over 200 hours of professional development. It's a commitment. They came back and told people like Nancy Schultz and Jen Curry, Kate Broll, we need to do something. What we're doing is not working. We need something different. A task force was put together. Every elementary teacher was asked, would you like to be part of it? And there were a great number who were. The result was a total change in how we are teaching elementary literacy. I'll give you an example. We used to, this has probably gone on a long time, used to have a teacher at the front of the room talking to all the students, whole group instruction. That's no longer what is done all the time. Matter of fact, it's probably minimal because different children have different needs. So the change is that it's a lot of small group, and it might be peer-to-peer. It might be a teacher working with 5 students who have like needs. It might be work based on a Chromebook. It might be work listening. And so we're working on things like decoding and fluency, which yield comprehension. Back in the day, we used to teach comprehension, but we know that that's not how students get it in their heads. It's by decoding and measuring their fluency. So what has happened is we've tapped into really great reading, and that supports teachers making sure they're getting materials into students' hands that's appropriate for their reading levels. It challenges them, moves them forward. We've seen great growth since this adoption. And we are going to be in compliance with the dyslexia law that's coming down the pike. And I am going to say within 3 more years, we're going to have not just third graders reading at grade level, we're gonna have fifth graders, K through 5. It's that powerful.
My final question. What is the biggest risk you have taken to do what is right for children?
I don't know if this was a big risk in somebody else's eyes, but it was a risk to a group of seniors at Roosevelt High School in Wyandotte. So COVID came. So we had a plan. The adults created the plan. We were going to be in the ice arena. We were going to do little groups. They could bring we created the whole plan. The students didn't like it. They wanted to be on the football field. And so they went through their channels, and it was like, we can't have high heels on the turf field. We can't put chairs on the turf field. It's going to be too far away. Parents aren't going to be able to see. What about the hot benches? Are people going to burn their legs? And so they ended up in my office. And I told them, let me look into this, and I'll get back to you. Now, these are not your student council presidents. These were kids who just really wanted something different. And so I, of course, go and learn about, can you put chairs on a turf field? You know, can people wear high heels on a turf field? Does that hurt them? So I had enough knowledge to say, other schools are doing this, we can do it. So it was getting the group of students together, our director of operations together, our safety team together, the graduation sponsors, the principals, and literally sitting around a table to problem solve and say, okay, go ask Rochester Adams how they do it. Go ask so-and-so how they do it. And so I facilitated that. And in the end, we were able to figure out a way to have graduation on the field. So adults, I think, sometimes don't see things through the eyes of students. And by listening to them, it validated and it made it meaningful. And so that was a risk I was able to justify.
Great. I'll turn it over to Trustee Ambrose.
I'm sure you're going to be shocked about this, Dr. Cost, but we're going to have a few moments to speak about finances. First question is, please describe your experience developing and managing budgets, including the largest budget you have overseen, and the strategies you use to maintain a balanced budget.
That's an important question, because everything we do depends on our fund balance. If we are healthy, we can provide for students, we can provide for staff, we can handle a boiler that stops working, a water main. So that, to me, is one of the most important functions of what I would need to oversee. So the Wayne-Westland budget is the largest one, 144 million. Wyandotte's was half of that, about 72. What goes into developing a budget is some unknowns, which make it tricky. When we're developing the budget to present it to all of you in June, we don't know our student count. Last year, we didn't know our per pupil allowance until October. That's kind of tricky. However, we have tools to help us. I was able to put my hands on enrollment projections for free from the Michigan Alliance of Student Opportunity. They did some enrollment projections for us. We also are getting some from Plant Moran, so we can take a look at where we think we're going to be next fall, and that's going to help Jewel as a starting point. I'm hoping the pressure that the legislator is feeling right now to create a budget and have it to us so that by June we know that outlier. We know grants, roughly, what our grant funding will be, so we can move people to the right places to preserve as much money in the general fund as we can. We know our staff payroll increases. Staff are gonna receive a percentage increase next year, so we can build that into next year's budget. I mentioned I'm very conservative, so even things like, what about our, Gino showed me figures of what we spend on heating in the winter. In those days where it was, so cold, that was millions to heat all 19 sites. So we project things like that rather conservatively, and Jewel is a master at this. I have so much confidence in her, that we will bring to you a conservative budget. We may not know everything, but it is going to be tightened up, buttoned up, and as good as we can make it.
Budget limitations often require difficult decisions. What opportunities do you believe these constraints create, and what priorities would guide your decision-making during challenging financial times?
And that's a very real question right now, because we were 300 students down from where we used to be, and we didn't see that coming. That was a surprise. So 300 students is $3 million. How do we tighten our belts to deal with that change that we didn't see coming? So first and foremost, that's why we have a fund balance, so that we're not under 15%, and certainly nowhere close to 5%. I was so uncomfortable in Hazel Park when that fund balance was less than 5%. I was not sleeping at night. So we want our fund balance to be at 15%. It still is, even with that loss of students. But now the question is, how do we build it back up? I believe we need to have that conversation with many individuals, meaning it's not just a Catherine thing, it's not just a board thing. We take it to our leadership team, we take it to our unions, we take it to anybody else who can provide input to say, how do we account for the most important things? For example, middle school math curriculum. We need new middle school math curriculum. That's $1 million. Do we not spend $1 million somewhere else so we can purchase that? Do we delay it a year? How do we answer those types of questions? And I think we need kind of all hands on deck, helping us know what is the right path for us to take.
And our final question. Please describe your experience with millage renewals, bond proposals, and sinking fund proposals, and what you believed contributed to the success or failures of those efforts.
So when this comes to mind, and it doesn't matter, any of those three, first of all, there's a needs assessment done at the facility. Then if you're thinking, then you have to coordinate with your fiduciary advisors. We use PFM. And the reason that's important is because if you have needs, so we asked for $125 million in November, and there was no increase to taxpayers. That was strategic because we felt that the community would support that. So of $125 million, what do we need? Can we get those needs met? So once you figure out how much you're asking for, you have to have approval by the Department of Treasury. The board has to approve it before it can go on a ballot. The voters vote. In the case of November's bond, we had a meeting set the very next day, November 8th. We had our fiduciary agency, we had PFM, we had Stiefel, we had our architect, we had our construction manager there, so we could start mapping out timelines. Because for them to start construction, we needed to sell the bonds. And that's where Stiefel, PFM, and our bond attorneys, which was Miller Canfield. So they had to do all this work to make sure that the bonds were ready to sell. That included getting our bond rating. So Jewel and I sat on a phone call where they asked all sorts of questions about the district. They asked about the community. They asked about the long-term financial stability. And the result of that was our bond rating increased. That was huge. So from 2018 to now, the bond rating increased. What does that mean? That meant we paid lower interest on the bonds, which meant more money for us to have in our pockets and to provide for students. So that happened last week. Our bonds sold. We're going to sell them in 3 series. That was the first series. The other 2 will come next year and then 2 years after that. And we should have our money in the beginning of April. So it's a complex process from start to finish. Pretty soon we're going to turn it over to Scott Toko and our buildings and grounds, and they'll start the work. But I've been a part of, this would have been the 3rd bond. I brought a sinking fund to Wyandotte and 2 enhancement millages. And those monies are so important to a district because if we, like I think about the turf fields, we're going to need to replace them. And I want to be proactive in when we need to and make sure that money is there. But this bond is going to take care of parking lots, roofs, windows, things like that, which are all important. But a turf field has a 10-year life expectancy, and that comes and goes before you know it. Right. And so it's constantly working with people like Gino and Matt to say, okay, let's timeline this out. Or Chad and our buses. We have 70 buses. How do we rotate those through? How do we make sure those are good to go and pass inspections? So I have extensive experience. We are in great shape here. I think the next thing up is we need to go back to the voters to change the sinking fund language. We're looking at doing that in August or November so that we can buy buses from it. It's no increase, but that's on the horizon. Followed by the next thing up is renewal of the enhancement millage from Wayne-Westland.
Thank you. We'll now turn the remainder of the formal questions over to Miss Abby Mitchell.
All right, well, good evening, and thank you, Dr. Cost, for interviewing. My first question is, please describe your approach to working with other administrators in the district, including how you budget, including how you balance providing support and autonomy.
Oh.
Thank you. With maintaining appropriate accountability, autonomy. Ain't gotta say that word no more.
I got you. I think a lot of that is your leadership style. I tend to be more hands-off. But, and my executive, or our executive team, I sat down with them and said, I'm not a micromanager. If anything, I go the other way. I'm there if you need me, but I'm not going to stand over your shoulder. You need, like, there's enough work for all of us to do. I can't be doing your work and mine. But with that comes trust. I need to trust that they will come to me when they need help, when things are not going well. The other message there is, like, we are leaders and we're not always gonna get it right. There are gonna be times where we make mistakes, and I have to trust them that if they stumble, they're going to pick right back up and keep going. So I would say with administrators, even our union leadership, this is the same message of I have high standards. Don't get me wrong there. There was a situation with finance that I was not pleased about, but it is now resolved and we're moving forward. I have high standards. We are blessed here in Wayne-Westland to have so many tools at our disposal to support students and problem solve and shift from one to another if we need it. And so my message would be, we have a job to do. These are our goals in our strategic plan. This is our most important work, and we better be working darn hard on getting to the end of the finish line with those goals.
Thank you. My next question is, please describe your experience in, oh, wait a minute. I gotta turn the page. What would you suggest in terms of comprehensive professional development plan for our educators? Specifically, what would be the key priority areas as well as the delivery system? You want me to repeat that again?
No, I think I got it.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you. No. Key priorities, we'll start with that one. Align to the strategic plan. Again, our resources, be it time or money, have to be aligned. It can't be fractured. The pieces have to go together in the puzzle so we can make a difference. Because if we're too scattered, we're not gonna make a difference on what our goals are. So, align to the strategic plan, which means the professional development has to be relevant. I remember as a principal, sometimes high schools have assemblies. They're loud, there's competitions. I had a young man in the middle of the lower section hold up a sign for the entire assembly. Why am I here? He held it. So I think about him. His name is Alan. He's probably 30, I don't know. So why am I here? So I think about any professional development we do, any meetings we have. I never want anybody to feel like they have to hold up a sign and say, why am I here? So it has to be relevant. It has to be engaging. This is what we would expect of our classrooms, right? Like, they would teach and it would be engaging, it'd be relevant. There would be student voice. So those are such important components. Our teachers, our educators, our adults are no different. It can't be a one and done. Research says those types of professional developments don't hold with a learner. So the timing has to be important. I think about our elementary teachers who had a new math adoption. We needed to make sure day one with students, they knew what they needed to know. Now, there was another PD day about a month later, so then it was like, okay, let's focus on the next 2 months. So they could progress in their learning in order to give students what they needed to give. So I think about our professional development time as being so valuable because things change in education and curriculum changes, learners change, we need to look at data. And so that time has to be so well designed and so well guarded that we're using it to the best of our abilities.
Okay, my final question is, how would you assess the culture and climax of our district? And what steps would you take as superintendent to positively influence and strengthen it?
So culture is defined as the unwritten rules.
Okay.
Structure, processes, that's how it should go. Culture is more of, how does it really go around here? And, and for a new teacher coming in or a new staff member, sometimes you have to figure out what the culture is of that school or that department. And that can be tricky. So on Monday, you approved purchase of something called Capturing Kids' Hearts. And I had the fortune to attend 2 days of training this week to find out more about it and what it would involve. And the theme of that is that children are not going to learn until they know you care. And where I tie it into culture is that we have plans to work with our unions, to work with our professionals, to develop an implementation of what is this going to look like. But in the end, it's going to have maintenance, transportation, secretaries, teachers, administrators, food service. Everybody who walks within a school is going to have the same language, is going to have the same approach with children, and they are going to walk away feeling not only the adults feeling valued, but the students feeling valued. And in listening to some of the districts, I know Mr. Ambrosiu talked to somebody who has been through this. It makes a consistent culture, it makes a positive culture, it is systemic. And I got goosebumps as I was in this training, thinking about the potential it has for our Wayne-Westland School District.
Thank you. I turn it over to President May.
Thank you, Dr. Koss. We would like to take a few minutes now to provide you with an opportunity to ask any questions you may have for the board.
I want to say thank you. This has been kind of a neat time for me to just talk about what is so passionate with my heart. Thank you to the people who have come tonight. I think that really resonates well as an organization, that there's a lot of people wanting to participate. I talked to Mr. Silveri, and he answered a couple of my questions. And at this point in time, I know you've had a very long week. Nothing else is coming to mind. I'm just grateful for the opportunity to be before you.
Thank you. So you kind of closed it, but I want to also offer the opportunity if there's anything additional that you'd like to add.
I think somebody asked me about relationships, and I should have included the unions. And I apologize that I forgot at the moment, but I remembered about 5 questions later, because they play such an important role within this organization. Troy was very union strong, and that's a good thing. And it reminded, when I came here, it reminded me of being in Troy. And I respect the work that they have and that they hold us accountable. And I am glad we have good working relationships with them.
Thank you. At this time, I'd just like to say that we truly appreciate your interest in the superintendent's position for Wayne-Westland. The board is interviewing 6 candidates this week, as you know, and we will let you know after our meeting Thursday, March 19th, where you stand in our search process. And again, thank you for your participation in this first round interview. You've had a long day as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Carr.
Come on now. No, those.
Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure to hear from you in that.
It was.
Yes, we didn't get to do that.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cost.
Thank you. Next on our agenda, we will have Michigan Leadership Institute talk to us about the preparation for the superintendent finalist selection. And so I will turn it over to Mr. Severi.
Thank you, President May. So you'll be coming back tomorrow evening, 6 o'clock, and first order of business will be to determine who you would like to advance in this process as finalists. So I wish you well. You've just interviewed 6 highly qualified candidates, and I don't know that it's going to be an easy decision for you, but it's one that has to be made. As we talked about before, there's no, I would say that the ideal number of finalists is 2, but you don't have a requirement as to how many you settle on. I've seen it range anywhere from 1 to 3. I don't think I've seen beyond that, but your personal decision as you leave here tonight and when you come back tomorrow will be to come tomorrow evening prepared to individually speak to who it is that you would like to advance in this process. To whatever extent you're comfortable doing so for the benefit of your board colleagues and others in the audience, it's helpful if you're able also to speak to why it is you'd like to advance them. With the reminder that we never speak about why we would not like to advance anybody. We don't want to publicly disparage anyone, but you're certainly welcome to speak as much as you'd like to about the reasons that you do see somebody as potentially being your next superintendent, and you'd like to hear more about them going forward. So again, initially it's an individual decision. We'll go around the table. You can each speak to who it is that you would like to advance. Sheila and I will tally that up for you, and once you're done with that, you'll probably be doing that yourselves too, but still we'll kind of repeat back to you how many of each of the finalists have the support of how many of the board members. And for any and all of those who have 4 or more board members where there's clear consensus to advance them, we would invite you to make a motion to advance those folks in the process. Once you reach the discussion, once that motion has been approved, obviously there could be further discussion. So if there's anything that you would like to say in terms of that motion, you're welcome to. But that's the process that will follow, much like we did when you came out of closed session and determined who you'd like to interview. And looking ahead, we'll follow much the same process when you make your final decision to select your superintendent as well. So walking out of here this evening, to prepare for that, just a reminder, you've got a lot of data now to consider, right? You've got the application materials that you got at the very beginning of the process for all these candidates. You have your own interview notes. I've seen you taking notes throughout the process, as you should have been. We appreciate that. It's easy after 6 interviews and 3 long nights to have some of what you heard to be a little bit muddled, so your notes can help clarify that for you. Some of the candidates gave you additional materials that you now have an opportunity to consider further. And you've gotten some feedback too from folks who've been in the audience listening to the interviews. You've been receiving those nightly. You'll receive more tonight. And it's going to be important for you to go through all of those too. And where those folks aren't making the decision for you, it's your responsibility, and you can't defer or default that. So it's not a popularity contest or a democratic process where you simply say, who do our stakeholders seem to favor the most? But it is a very important data point, and it's important that you very seriously consider how the folks who live and work in your district are reacting to the candidates who've come before you. So lots of data to consider. And I would ask you too to be mindful of, as you do that, you're looking for best fit for Wayne-Westland. You've got numerous candidates who are highly qualified, and several of them may actually fit the bill, and you might be able to put them in position and they could be highly successful. But you want to consider your candidate profile, which is right there in your interview binder for you. So as you're thinking about those candidates, I would just really encourage you strongly to think of it through the lens of that candidate profile and think about who most closely fits that profile, because the candidates who most closely fit that are likely to be the best fit for your school district. Any questions about that process?
Is it a live cast? No.
Yes.
This process is not live at all.
I will say this, what we'll be doing, though, is at the close of the meeting, we'll be placing phone calls to each of the 6 candidates. Sheila and I will do that before we even leave the site, immediately at the end of the meeting, to let each of them know where they stand. For the finalists, we'll talk about second round, get them scheduled for their second interview. And as soon as those second round interviews are scheduled, we'll immediately get that information to the district so that you can post it publicly, and people will know when that's going to take place. So very likely that will happen no later than Friday morning.
Yep. Tonight at 10 p.m.
So if I can add something to that, that won't be the end of the meeting. Once you make that decision, we're going to have further discussion then about next steps in the process, which is very important too, including second round interviews and then the other activities that we've talked about previously that the candidates will be involved in. Interview questions is part of that. We're not going to pick interview questions tomorrow, but we'll talk about how you'll go about doing that. The one decision that we're going to have to make tomorrow related to the second interview, though, is the presentation topic. So I'm going to encourage you tonight to give that a little bit of thought too. I framed it for you before, but I'll repeat it. Where interview questions, typically you get about a 3 to 4 minute response. This is an opportunity for you to hear about a topic of your choosing from each of the finalists. For roughly, we advise them to make that roughly 20 minutes in length. So you get to hear more in depth about a particular topic of interest to you. That topic can be about anything. It could be a burning issue currently in your district. It could be related to maybe something in the candidate profile that you want to lift up further. It could be virtually anything, right? But it's a great opportunity to hear about something more in depth and then to see the person's presentation style as they present that to you. So give that a little bit of thought, because we will talk about that tomorrow night, and we will want you to make that selection tomorrow so that when we call the candidates tomorrow night, we can immediately tell them, this is what you have to prepare for. This is the presentation that you have to get ready for when you come to your interview.
John, does the presentation topic have to be the same topic for each candidate?
We ask in this case that it is.
Okay.
And we'll talk about the questions a little bit more, but when it comes to the questions, there will be an opportunity to ask specific questions that pertain specifically to each of those finalists.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions about that at all? All right, so tomorrow evening, we'll make that decision. We'll have further dialogue about next steps, and we'll be ready to move this process forward.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
That's it. Oh, John, I got something for you.
We're not done.
Pardon?
I got something for you.
Okay, thanks.
Our, next on our agenda will be citizens' comments. Ms. Post, do we have any others that you know of?
Good.
Short and sweet, I promise. My name is Echo Post. I don't think I mentioned that last night, but I'm not sure. I just want to say our district desperately needs a new face. The last few have just been a disaster, unfortunately. So we need to hire someone who's not been part of the previous administrations even, that have put us in a bad light. The mention that Dr. Weaver had, that when it's bad, and everybody shows up. That's kind of where we've been. So I implore you to avoid moving forward with Dr. O'Feely or Dr. Leverett, because we know that it's not good in Pontiac right now either. And probably not Dr. Ahart either, just because we don't really know him. He is not from here. I do request and almost beg that you consider Mrs. Jackson, Mr. Kudlak, and even Dr. Cost at this point, with a heavy emphasis on Mrs. Jackson for her operations background and Mr. Kudlak for his emphasis on transparency, which God are we missing in this district, and his culture and climate improvement, which is very evident in Van Buren. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other? Sorry, I have the timer on, so I was trying to turn the timer off and talk and do all the things. We are now at review and recommendations, Board of Education. We're gonna start with Mrs. Abney Mitchell. Sorry.
It's okay. Good evening, everyone. I just want to thank everyone for coming out. Your support is greatly needed these last couple of days, and I appreciate you. And I just want to say thank you to the candidates and good luck to them all. And I'd say thank you to the students, the teachers, and the community. And thank you to my fellow board members. I appreciate you guys. I respect you guys, especially the well-done ones, the mature ones, all through this process when we decided to go through this process. And before, I looked to y'all and asked for y'all advice. And I respect that because y'all been here before. This is my first time around. So thank you so much. And I just ask you guys to forgive me as my anxiety kicks in whenever I have to do something or think about doing something. So forgive me for that. And, you know, my grandson is over there, but I had to say what I had to say. I'm an adult. I'm a great grandmother. I didn't live through school, elementary, high school, junior high school, college. I done went through all that. So to have colleagues that I work with and feel like they have something to say to me and they cannot say it, they go to social media and say it makes me just feel like I'm being bullied. So I just want to say to my colleagues, if you got something to say to me, say it to my face. And that's all I have tonight.
Thank you, Mrs. Abney Mitchell. Mr. Ambrose?
First, I want to thank our candidates for coming and answering some questions. I think this has been a very enlightening few nights. Seeing the different opinions of what each individual would do to help move this district forward. Reading some of the comments from all of you. Most of you in this audience have been here every night. That is dedication. And so thank you for being concerned about this district and what you feel we need to do to move this district forward. And I want to thank my board members for the sacrifice that they've also put in. I know none of us have really seen our families this week, and still have a few more weeks of this. And so I hope you guys can enjoy seeing this ugly face for the next few weeks. And with that, I wish you all a good night and looking forward to seeing you all tomorrow.
All right.
Thank you. Mr. Rashad?
I'll be brief. I want to say thank you to the candidates that applied, but more so thank you for you all coming out. One thing I would ask is next round, if we all can tell the community to come out and pack this room, because it doesn't make any sense. We have all these empty seats in here. I've been reading and listening to the community, reading the comments. That's a serious data point for me in my decision. I would ask that you all will tell others to make comments and come out. Come out. It is all of our responsibility to fill this room. I'll be making calls. Come out to the next round. Hopefully you guys make calls to pack this room, because this is a decision that we're all making together. That's all.
Thank you. Dr. Weaver?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I'd like to extend the thank you to the staff and the community members that are here. It's not easy for you, and it's not easy for the board. Many times I've stood up and had to fall back a little bit because of stiffness from the meetings being so long. But my comments tonight are about board meeting protocol. The thoughts that are put in our guidelines is to refrain from condescending or critical comments to members of the staff, public, and board. Also, that the president shall not permit any discussion that is inappropriately derogatory or in ridicule of another person. It continues on, requiring individuals who wish to address the board to direct their comments to the entire board and not individual board trustees, the superintendent or other school district employees or members of the audience. And then also that we, as a board, and would prohibit behavior that is intemperate, abusive, defamatory, or discourteous, or that otherwise interferes with the orderly conduct and timely completion of the board meeting. We have had this happen over the years. I was troubled by last night because a board member's name was mentioned and the discussion was not stopped. The tradition is, and the system is that when board members' name is called, that immediately the president of the board is to stop the individual and redirect their comments. And if they do not redirect their comments, then they are asked to conclude and to be seated. I think that in saying this, I'm not trying to hurt or abuse anybody, and especially my colleagues on the board, but it's just not fair to get up at the microphone and intentionally try to disrupt our meeting and hurt board members who are giving their lives for the school district. You see us once a month. We're in the district all the time. And so that behavior has to stop. I noticed something on the comments and from last night as well. And I want to address that. Every member of this board is a professional. We have professional jobs, and just like our teachers, our day is not over at 2 o'clock. After 2 o'clock, you gotta go home, maybe fix dinner, you gotta talk to your kids a few minutes, and then you're up till 10 or 11 o'clock grading papers for the next day. So a comment was made last night about board members who seem to be on their phones at times. As I've said, all of these people are professional people. I personally am a pastor, and I get calls and texts all the time. Hey, I'm in trouble. I need your help. I'm in the hospital. And I'm not going to disregard my phone just because somebody thinks I need to. Because there are times, just like our teachers, that I'm here after 9 o'clock tonight. I may not go to bed till 2 or 3 in the morning. I may have to counsel somebody. I may have to respond to their text. So before derogatory comments are made, really give it an effort to think about what you're saying and what you're really trying to do. And that concludes my comments for tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Weaver. Mr. Cox?
Thank you, President May. I would just like to say that I would like to have said everything Dr. Weaver just said, because he's absolutely correct. And the reason he's correct is because there's so much important work being done in our school district. We have to stick with a system. You heard over and over again these wonderful candidates talk about the Gang of Eight, the 7 board members and them. And I think sometimes talk like that is a little bit confusing, and here's what I mean by that. We really aren't a board of directors. What we are is a board of education, and we set policy. And we instruct the superintendent what we want them to do. And if they're successful in doing it, when we evaluate them, they get a good evaluation and go on. And if they're not successful in doing that, we'll get another superintendent. But you can't make someone responsible for the job and then also tell them how to do the job. I think there's some confusion about that. It is very important. It is a very lonely job.
Yes, it is.
And if you'll notice, superintendents have a habit. When things are going well and they're having success, they give all of the credit to their staff. They never take any credit. But when things go bad, they get all the credit for that. And the only thing they have is us. Now, just a couple of years ago, we had a superintendent, and we were in a terrible position. And within a half hour of finding out that we had a serious problem, one board member who had spent most of their career with our school district went in and quit. Didn't even tell the board president, just told the superintendent and quit. Another one, before they heard any of what was going on, announced that they were not going to support the superintendent, and they weren't the only one that did that. So the Gang of Eight starts with supporting the person that you hired. You might have to fire them, but until then, you're expected to work together cooperatively to come to a solution. Not act like the French army and drop your rifle and run. The kids are going to be in school tomorrow. People that leave tonight and they say they're all done, the kids are still going to be here tomorrow. And as Mr. Silveri said, we had a wonderful group of people. I remember 10 months ago, we were told by a couple hundred people that if we didn't put one person in charge, the whole thing was going to sink. Well, we see what happened with that. And that as a consequence of our challenges, we weren't going to be able to attract anybody to the school district. 32 people
36.
wanted this job. And the reason I think that happened is because of us,
Right.
frankly. We could have lost our mind and not worked together and been dysfunctional, but that's not what we did. In truth, the executive staff got together, did the work that needed to be done, and we continued, just like one of our applicants said, we continued to move on to the goal because the kids are going to be in school tomorrow. And that's what's important. So with respect to what Dr. Weaver said about the policy and the procedures of how we conduct business here, the same thing is true for whatever superintendent that we choose for our school district. They're going to need our support, not just when they're winning, when they're losing too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hines.
Yes, I'd like to say we have some really great candidates for our superintendent search. It's really been a long day. I do have some applications for the IBEW. They're having some training for the skill trades that's coming up. So I definitely want to get that out to the district and the families because they're paying some really good money. And I got some information from MUST too as well with the construction skill trades. And we're having an amazing event this Friday. I'm Corp and Tap with our Rotary, Miss Maria. Definitely get some tickets. It's going to be really good this Friday. Come out, support our teachers and staff. And good night.
Thank you. To piggyback on what my board colleagues said in terms of our candidate pool, I'm just very grateful for each of the candidates that applied, the ones that we had the opportunity to interview over the last 3 nights. And to our community and staff members that have come out, thank you for being here. I really do hope to see more people here next week. I think it is important for community and staff to hear what the applicants or candidates have to say, to utilize the QR code for feedback once you hear what they have to say, right? Giving each candidate the opportunity to answer the questions and to go through the process. I know me personally, every night I have read each and every comment that has come through on those feedbacks. And so they are important, and as Mr. Severi said, they are a piece of data that we look at. The candidate profile, to me, is very important. That is something that the board took a great deal of time, along with establishing the intake meetings for union, teachers, community members to be a part of the development of this profile. So it isn't just the board's profile. But what I do want to say is that, or not but, and if you are curious about the process and how we got here, that was a November 8th meeting, which is on YouTube. So please do not hesitate to pull that meeting up, just so you have the full background on how we got to this point, right? The other piece that I'll add is just, again, hoping to see everyone next week. And I'm kind of torn on whether I want to address this or not, but I'm going to. And what I'm going to say is that in sitting in this seat to me is, as I shared when I was first placed in the seat, this is not a seat of power to me. This is a seat of responsibility and facilitating a meeting. So what I will not ever do is bang on this gavel, speak rudely to people, or get into arguments with people. I'm not going to do that. And if my fellow board members feel as though I'm not fulfilling my role as the board president, I have no problem with stepping down. But I just want to make it clear that I will not make a mockery of myself or this district in this seat. And with that being said, I'm calling for an adjournment.
So moved.
Support.